Okay, today we'll be talking to Professor Tebogo Mashifana, who gave a keynote address on day one. Professor, how are you doing today?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
I'm fine. Okay, I'm just going to go straight to the questions. Can you just tell me a little bit about yourself and where did you go to school as a young learner and how was your experience?
As you've already said, my name is Tebogo Mashifana. I was born in a small village called Sitlakwane in Limpopo, and I attended my primary school in a primary school there, Mapande Primary School. When I went to secondary school, I had an opportunity or advantage of really attending what many will call the Model C private school, and I'm so passionate really about giving a helping hand, especially to those that might not be able to help themselves. I'm passionate about really going back to my community. I'm passionate about mentorship, mentoring the younger generation. I firmly and strongly believe that each and every one of us, if you have gone a step ahead, it is your responsibility to go back and really see how you can live those are coming after you.
Of course. And you chose to study engineering at school.
Yes.
Why did you choose that particular course?
Surprisingly, is that when I chose chemical engineering, I did not even know that this is chemical engineering. All I knew is that I had a picture in my mind, and that picture was me wearing a white lab coat, working in a laboratory. And so you can just imagine, even though I said that I had the privilege of really attending what we see or called Model C schools, I still did not have that advantage of understanding or being guided for career choices and all that. And that picture is actually what kept me going. When I went to university, that is the only thing that I had in my mind, that it has to be chemicals, it has to be a white lab coat, it has to be a laboratory. Only to find out that chemical engineering is beyond that. It's actually, it does not just entail you wearing a lab coat and being in a laboratory, but there's actually more to it than what I expected. And yes, I think really starting further all the way to my PhD and beginning to being exposed to some of the challenges that we are experiencing in our country, I developed this love, to really investigating and coming up with solutions that will solve environmental pollution challenges that we are experiencing in the country. So that is my research area. My research area is in the space of circular economy, looking into beneficiation of solid waste that is generated by so many industries, and looking into really closing that loop. To say that yes, we have industries that may be generating this particular waste that end up in our landfills, in our environment, contaminating our environment. How do I use the skills and knowledge that I have to actually investigate some of the solutions to such problems? And closing that loop, the most important thing is that we are here, but there's a generation that is coming after us. So we have to be very conscious of our actions today, and that they should not affect the generation that is coming after us. That is now talking about sustainability and some of the sustainable development goals that really my research is looking into working towards achieving.
And looking at the world around us, the world is changing at a very fast pace. What do you think some of the jobs in the future will be?
When we presented that, we just had a panel discussion around the same topic. And what I presented about was really about, I'd like to call them some of the soft skills. And I'm talking about soft skills in the context of the current conference, the STEMI COP 2022 conference, that sometimes we cannot even begin to talk about all this complicated innovation technology that is up there if we are not willing to begin to really address some of the basic, they may be basic, but important and impactful skills that we need to have. And I'm talking about the learner. the theme for this conference is about that learner, that boy child, that girl child from a disadvantaged community. How do you prepare that learner? Within the context of South Africa, disadvantage and technology, we know that most of our rural areas do not even have computers, do not even have access to data. But it is those skills that how do you begin to train that learner without all these other resources and the infrastructure? How do I train or begin to transfer skills or develop skills that that particular person begin to be a critical thinker? So that is one thing. Being a critical thinker, being someone that is actually able to solve some of the problems. And it is those skills, I mean, your mathematics, your physical sciences, they teach you such things. But sometimes there's, and I presented about this yesterday, that there may be this disconnect that we really may be pushing for learners to love science, love mathematics, but they don't even understand. You cannot relate it at their level to say that, in fact, this is how mathematics or physical sciences, chemistry, influence or actually affect you on a daily basis. Yes. So I think it is that is really beginning to develop programs, even our curriculum. What is it that we can actually incorporate in our curriculum to ensure that that learner from a disadvantaged community, when we're talking about mathematics and physical sciences, we are not communicating that to say that please do maths, physical sciences so that tomorrow you can have a better job and. Can we begin to communicate that to say that on a daily basis, this is how mathematics and physical sciences apply to you? And I think because when we can begin to do it that way, now the learners understand, instead of like feeling that, okay, this is actually pushed onto them. If they understand why they need to do these things, I think really we begin to inspire that. And one of the things that I spoke about yesterday, I emphasized so much on yesterday was the issue of exposure. Yes. That we cannot, we're talking about all these skills, we're talking about these skills that really, for a learner that from a disadvantaged community, they've never seen an engineer, they don't know what an engineer is. We're coming here, we're talking about STEMI, they don't know what innovation is. Can we begin to expose our learners? Yes. Can we begin to have all these maker spaces? And if really the infrastructure does not allow, budget does not allow, let us collaborate with institutions that are available and are already offering those services so that we expose our learners. Sometimes our learners, and I'm talking about a learner from a disadvantaged community, cannot even begin to think outside the box. Not because they cannot or their mind cannot go that far, but because their experience and what they're exposed to limit them. How do you really, it is deeper, yes. But yes, let us expose our learners really to what we're talking about or what we aspire for them to become in the future.
Of course, because when in high school, when you're doing science, it's really different when you're doing science at a higher education level or when you get into the working space. They have a different idea of what it actually is. Yes. My next question is, what do you think can be done to bridge that gap between higher education sector and high primary sector?
There's an example that I gave this afternoon to say that I spoke to someone and we were talking about how some of the learners from the basic education will actually struggle in the first year of their studies. And not just struggle, actually, if they went there with this desire and passion to study engineering, the next time that you follow them up, you find that they actually dropped out because engineering is so difficult. And I said that in the first year of many engineering fields, what you do there is your mathematics, is your physical sciences, chemistry, similar to what you've done in your grade 12, you know. So it means that if someone now is ready from the basic education, he has completed their matric, and they come to the university and they struggle to grasp the concept that is taught in the first year, there's something that is not right then. Yeah. You know, there's a gap that really needs to be filled. So it is that we need to collaborate, and I spoke about that there are so many silos. Whatever that is being taught at the basic education, in fact, that sometimes it does not fit to what the learners will be doing or the students will be doing in their first year. Let us collaborate. Let us not work in silos. Basic education, the higher education sector, we need to collaborate and ensure that really for the benefit of the learners. So that the learners, because at the end of the day, if we do not break these silos, and a learner from a disadvantaged community, that's the one that will actually really be affected the most.
Of course. My next question is, what strategies have you identified that can be able to prepare and equip the learners once they get to that position?
I spoke about the exposure. I spoke about we need to be intentional, and that is really the basic education, it is the higher education sector, that we need to be intentional about what is it that we want to teach our learners. At the level of primary school, not because sometimes we think that now we need to start training them at when they're in grade 11, grade 12. It is too late to do that. How do we inspire someone to love science, mathematics when they are about to exit high school? We need to really begin to, and I gave an example yesterday about my 6-year-old daughter, who in grade 1, she's already doing robotics. And I said that the level is not, the ground is not level. Yeah. You can just think about that. And I also said that, and I know many other girls and boys from my village, in my community, and I know the curriculum. How do we expect that girl child to compete with my daughter at any level?
Exactly, yes.
It will not happen, you know. And it is that, and when you really zoom into that, you'll see that while we're talking about this very high unemployment rate in South Africa, it is that vicious cycle that will continue and never stop, because we are not really changing the system that is influencing that. That learner that does not get the required skills probably will not even get to the university. You know, they will definitely struggle to get employment because to start with, they do not have the required skills to even compete in a job market and so forth. So it's a complex issue, but it requires people that are intentional about making change. Because the problems are here. I think yesterday there are so many problems that were discussed. And I said at the beginning of my speech yesterday that my deepest desire is that when we are doing all the deliberations, the discussions, when people are writing notes, they are not going to take that notebook and close it and wait for another conference for them to open those notes. They need to actually look at those the notes that they have written and personalize it to say that yes, these are the problems that were discussed at the conference. What can I do as an individual? And it begins with that one learner. Sometimes I think we get overwhelmed by the challenges of our country because we think that, oh my God, I need to help millions and millions of learners. Oh, yes. But if you really think about one learner, to say that, you know what, there is this boy child, there's this girl that I've seen that she's doing well in mathematics, she's doing well in physical sciences. How do you nurture that as a teacher? Sure. So it can be that one person can actually be impacted, and when that person is really inspired more, the talent in that person and that learner is nurtured, you don't know how far she or he will go to really inspire other learners. And I mean, we can begin to change the system as it is.
Of course.
Yeah.
My next question is that what do you think? Do you think that language will play a role in preparing a diverse learners in South Africa? Because these learners, especially in the townships or in the village, they're learning in their own home language.
Yeah. Are they learning in their own home language? Yes, they are taught English in Zulu, English in Ndebele, English in yes. You know, it's a difficult one in two ways, because think about it. Deep rural areas then. How will they even understand if I come and teach them in English?
Exactly.
You know, Then the flip side of that is that yes, I can come and teach mathematics, I can come and teach physical sciences, chemistry in Zulu, Ndebele, Pedi, Tsonga, Venda, whatever is. When that learner gets to varsity, and I gave an example, I don't know if I shared it yesterday or if I was discussing this with someone to say that most of the students that I know or that actually took longer to complete their degrees, you'll find that someone has actually completed all the technical related modules. They are left with communication skills. Communication skills, because that requires you to stand in front of people to communicate in English. So I think we need to balance it in a very, because if we really elevate one and suppress the other, it will have that negative impact on the learners. And I'm saying that, yes, I mean, for me, imagine I go in the rural area, primary school, I begin to talk English, speak English to the learners, teach them in English. They will not understand that.
And lose interest as well.
Exactly, because they don't understand that. They're just really looking at someone, hearing someone mumbling in front of them. But again, I need to use their language so that they understand the concept. But in doing that, when really it is an English module, let it be English. Because if we do not get that right also, it affects the learners when they get to the university. And I'm giving the example of communication skills.
Yes.
The first thing, you are not trained to stand in front of anyone and really open your mouth to
and
speak.
articulate yourself. Yes.
The next thing, you need to give presentations, and it becomes a challenge. So it needs to be balanced. And I gave an example yesterday to say that we need, in terms of exposure, let us write books that our learners in primary school from disadvantaged communities can relate to. And I said that, but some of these books are actually available, but it is the language itself. Maybe it needs to be translated to the language that the learners can understand. But let us also not lose that, because English is really that medium language. You go wherever, overseas, you need to know how to communicate in English. So we should not teach English in Zulu or Sepedi. Let's teach English in English, and let us really use the language that the learners will understand to teach other. Let's really break down mathematics, break down physical sciences, chemistry in the language that they will understand.
Of course. Okay, my next question is that what are some of the specific examples of innovative teaching methods or approaches that can be really effective?
Sure, with that question, I'm really just reminded of the era that we've just came out from, COVID. How really that negatively affected mainly the schools in the rural areas, those that did not have technologies. And so I'm from the University of Johannesburg, and we are one of the universities, I think, that completed their curriculum in that year. We did not have to suffer to say that, how do we now begin to introduce technology to ensure that we continue with teaching and learning online, because the system was already in place. The technologies to do that were already in place. So it's a simple thing such as technologies to learn. Because we are here, this conference is about that learner in the disadvantaged community. I don't even want to go big. I mean, this and this and this technology. A simple thing, a learner in our rural areas, they do not know how a computer looks like. Right?
Yes.
And the other example that I gave was really to say that when, in terms of exposing learners, these gadgets, you can actually think that they are a disadvantage or something. But I've seen how my daughter actually teaching herself through this gadget. She's like teaching me some of the things. Then I'm like, where did you find this? Where did you learn about this? Like, no, I found it on YouTube. And then she's 6 years old. And so it is that, for me, really, it will be that, what technology can we begin to use or incorporate in our schooling system so that our learners can learn better? We're talking about science, we're talking about mathematics, we're talking about chemistry. There are so many programs that are available whereby you can really, instead of especially in rural areas where there is no infrastructure. The learners that are doing physical sciences without a laboratory, you know, they only know that, no, you mix this chemical and that. They only see that in books and theory. Yet there are so many videos that people can, you can actually begin to introduce that. Yes, we don't have infrastructure for me to conduct these experiments in the laboratory, but can I actually bring a computer, a projector, and like I'm talking about, that is not even, it's not the technology, that has been there for forever.
Yes.
But can we actually begin to, before we think about all these artificial intelligence and all these big technologies that are really drastically changing the world, can we even begin to think about, okay, what is the need currently? Because really, imagine now I begin to talk about coding. A learner that does not even understand, they're doing physical sciences only in the book. That, let us,
Yes.
but it is that. A computer, a projector, wherever there are shortages, we can actually show learners to say, okay, this is how the experiment is done. This is how when you mix this and this is what I mean. This is what this book says. If I mix it, show them, let them see it. That now speaks to what I've already said about exposure.
Yes.
But it begins to actually, and one of the speakers spoke about really experiment that of things that you can do in your kitchen. You know, but unless you have that knowledge and you understand that, it may actually be difficult and you may actually be discouraged to even bring that in your classroom. So like, let us start with the basics before we, especially in South Africa, within our context, let's start with the basics to ensure that we are really training and transferring skills that are applicable to our learners.
And just bringing those that have been left behind just to the basic things that have been there all along.
Yes, because as it is now, that gap is getting wider and wider. You know, we need to think, really rethink the strategies to ensure that we are not leaving them, we are including them in whatever that we are doing.
Of course. And are there any particular changes or adaptations that you believe need to be made to the curriculum in order to align it with the requirements that they require in the education system?
Most definitely. And I think it is not only in the basic education, it is also in the higher education sector. There is there's a lot that needs to be done, and I will give an example to say that I think for the longest time I always believe that when you're looking into the curriculum, the curriculum in the higher education sector, you find that we are actually, I think for the longest time we've been teaching students for them to go out there and seek employment. For company A, B, C to employ them. Hence, there's a very high unemployment rate. Even amongst graduates, you find graduates that are sitting at home with their degrees and qualifications. But so all the skills that I've spoken about, can we, instead of really teaching 1+1 in our classrooms, and that really applies primary school, high school, all the way to higher education, let's relate it to everyday life. What is X plus Y in everyday life? How do we really apply that? How do we begin to, at the higher education sector, how do we begin to inspire or really develop, transform our curriculum in such a way that when our learner or students graduate, they know that I'm actually an employer because I've acquire the skills and the knowledge to solve problems, and I'm going back to my society to actually identify those problems and solve them. And when we do that, we're now beginning to actually having entrepreneurs that are not just entrepreneurs to make profits and make money, but are entrepreneurs that are really solving real problems in their societies. So it is that the critical thinking, problem solving. From a problem solving, it should go beyond, like how we assess our learners. And I spoke about that yesterday, to say that even how we assess our learners in the curriculum, if we are assessing our learners, are we assessing our learners are we assessing the competency or I was assessing memory, that okay, this one was able to memorize this, or are we really assessing the competency of whatever that we are teaching?
Are they understanding what they read?
Yeah, and can you really, as a teacher, are you even skilled? I think that discussion kept coming several times to say that even as a teacher, are you skilled to be able to now, okay, now I'm going to my classroom, I'm going to assess competency. So it's a complex one. It's a complex one because it goes deeper. It's not just something that you say that, okay, after table, yes, if you can do 1 to 3, change this and that in our curriculum, things are going to change. But it has to be that our curriculum cannot just be really mathematics, physical sciences. It has to be physical sciences and really showing how that applies to our everyday life. I think that is really one of the ways that will really inspire people to follow or love the STEMI-related fields and careers.
Of course. And my last question, is there anything that you would like to add, your takeaway from the entire, for the conference thus far?
I think one thing for me that was, it was mind-blowing. A question that I received yesterday, that was asked yesterday after my presentations, and it was about how some of the schools, and I'm talking about basic education, may actually close down because it is believed, or learners are made to believe that they do not have the ability to understand mathematics and physical sciences and all that. That was like, wow, really, is that something that is happening?
Yeah.
And I would like to say that, and I'm from the village, I'm from Limpopo, I'm from that community. There are so many learners, so many high school, primary school learners are disadvantaged. The background is, they're from a disadvantaged background. I like to say that the ability to do and become is in them. And it is our responsibility as a teacher, it is a responsibility as a parent to ensure that we nurture that. But actually, it is about really the attitude also towards these subjects, the attitude towards developing the learners and inspiring them. I think inspiring them, sometimes the environment that they grow up in, it really does not allow them to think outside the box. And one thing that I always say is that if we have really gone a step ahead, please go back home. And that is it. We spoke about it yesterday to say that imagine if each and every one of us has really been to university, is now working, can go back home to say that, you know what, I'm going back home to assist even if it's one learner. We will not have so many challenges that we are experiencing. So this is a call for action also to those that have gone a step ahead. You went to university, you are studying, you went to the university, you are now working. Let us go back home. Let us go back home and ensure that the challenges that we experience when we were growing up, the learners, they are not experiencing that. It's our responsibility, and each and everyone can actually do that. It does not need money, it does not need resources, it just requires a heart that is willing to do that.
Of course, definitely. Professor, thank you so much for your time. Really insightful. Really appreciate the work that you've done.
Thank you so much.
How many?
It is 2 eyes.
I didn't see this.
So when your brain goes here, right? At the bottom, right?